Hey folks, Andy here, thanks for joining me. Right, this time out we're going to take a look at this. This is a Yamaha Pacifica. It belongs to my friend Lisa, and it's a beautiful guitar, but she's noticed one tiny little issue with it, and that is that as she plays up the neck, the low E string will not intonate properly. It's getting sharp as she goes up the neck. The other strings all intonate absolutely perfectly, well, as perfectly as a guitar ever will do, but the sixth is definitely getting a bit sharp. Now, we know, and we've covered this in some of the guitar setup videos that I've done, that you can fix this with an adjustable saddle by winding the saddle backwards in this direction. But this one is as far back as it goes. It's got a little spring in there on the machine screw. It's there to keep everything just a little bit under tension so that the screw doesn't work its way out and fall out. But that spring is completely compressed, so we may have to have a little look at that. Now, there are a couple of other things which are worth considering before we start making adjustments. One is the action on the guitar. If the guitar has a very high action, so that you have to push the string a long way to get it to fret, then thinking about it, that's a little bit like doing, but less so, obviously. And as you press the string, it's stretching it, which will make it go sharp. And if you have got, these are nines, I think, 9 to 42, so relatively light strings. And if you play with a bit of a heavy hand on it, you can definitely get quite a pitch change just by going from the difference between touching the fret and pressing right down into the fingerboard. But I've tried it using a very light touch and it's still going sharp on me. The fact that the rest of the strings are playing fine suggests that even though this action is a little bit higher than I would go for, it's possibly not worth worrying about that as the culprit. The next thing to have a quick look at is the neck relief, and doing the old body fret, first fret, and then tapping the middle. This has got a little tiny bit more of a bow in it than I would have personally gone for, but Lisa has got the guitar booked in to go in for a full service. It's just a little while before the person who's doing that job on it can actually get to see it, so I'm having a look to see what I can do to get the intonation issue fixed, but I don't want to start hacking and changing her guitar around. You know, guitars are very personal things, and if you're used to the way it plays, you don't want someone to come and give it back to you and find yourself going, well, hang on, this doesn't feel like my guitar. What have you done to it? So I'm going to leave that well alone. So it's probably going to be the saddle that we need to sort out. But the other thing that is worth a think about is the string itself. Now, the way guitars are tuned is that you tune the guitar open, so the position of the nut sets where the open string tuning is, and if that's off, then the thing's going to go out of tune up the neck. But also the positions of the frets make a difference, and the length of the string, and we change the length of the string by fretting it. So as we make the string shorter, the pitch gets higher. The fret positions on most guitars are fixed and they are machine cut, so it's not like you've got somebody who had a bad Friday and put the frets in the wrong place. That's very, very unlikely to be the issue. But the string length bit is dependent on the weight, the mass of the string being the same all the way along. And if you've got a string that's had a lot of playing done on it, then the strings tend to flatten out at the points where they rub against the frets. So that's something worth having a look at. Now, I just rubbed my nail along the back of this, and this string feels in pretty much perfect condition, so I don't think it's that. But you know what? Every now and again, you do get the odd string that comes out the pack, and it's just a bad one. There's something wrong with the core, or the windings have slipped, or something like that. And you find that you then get a string which changes a different amount between some frets and other frets. So that is definitely worth having a look at. So the first thing that I'm going to do before I start hacking the bridge about is I'm going to put a new low E string on this and see if the issue stays or goes away. So just bear with me whilst I do that. And interestingly then, now, see that? That shouldn't be doing that. And the reason that's doing that is that this nut which holds the tuning peg in place is loose. So I think maybe the first thing that we want to do is just make sure that's correctly placed and nipped up. So I'm just going to get the right size of spanner for that. So bear with me a moment. Okay, we're back, and I've got a spanner. This is a 10mm. And all I'm going to do now is slacken that string off so that we're not putting anything under tension. Just get the nut roughly into the correct position. And then It's got a washer underneath it, so I'm not worrying about scratching the headstock up, but don't use pliers or mold grips or something like that for this. Intonation work, you usually want to use something a bit more accurate than a clip-on tuner, but rather than having extra leads running about for the sake of this, I will just run it with my trusty poly tune on the headstock. Yeah, the A is playing a little bit sharp on the attack and then it's settling down properly, but the E is just a little bit too much beyond that. So I might just, there's room to take that A back just a little bit, but we're kind of out of space on the E. So I'm going to take this string off. I actually did think for just a moment there that that might have done the job. So I'm going to take this off and find another 42 to put on it. And now, even with the new string on, however gently I play that, I cannot get it to come quite right. So this needs to go back. So I have got my screwdriver. I put a cloth down at the back so that nothing mars up the guitar. And I just want to double check. Yeah, that spring is as compressed as it's going to go. So next thing to do, I don't like screwing bits in and out when everything is under tension. That does no one any favors. So first thing that I think I want to check on this is going to be that there is actually enough movement, that it's just the spring getting in the way. Looking at it, it looks as though that would be the case, but if the saddle physically won't move back far enough, even without the spring on it, then what we have to think about is shortening the back of the saddle, cut a few mil off the back of it. But the problem with doing that is that it's going to ruin the plating, or else find somewhere that sells aftermarket saddles and get a slightly shorter one. So is that in place? Is that actually going in? Yep. So we're going to screw this back. All the detail of doing this stuff you can see in the guitar setup series. So, you know, I'm not worrying about getting super close in on it. It's just the process that I'm going through for this one, really. So I'm taking this all the way back now. That, I think, is as far as we're going to go on that. So let's see what we've got there. Okay. Now, interestingly, that is roundabout spot on with the saddle. We've got focus, can we see there? With the saddle all the way back. Now, that's interesting because I really don't have room there to put even a coil of the spring in to do any good. I will have a little look and see if I've got a little rubber washer or something that can go in. It's just about keeping a bit of tension on it. Because all this stuff vibrates, screws have a horrible habit of finding a way to vibrate loose. If I can't do that, what I'm going to do is put a tiny, tiny little dab of Threadlock. I don't think I've got anything that is going to go in and do that job. So what I'm doing here is I've got the end of, see that? Yep, that is an unwound guitar string with a tiny bead of Threadlock on it. And all I'm going to do is wipe that on one thread on the screw, and then I'm going to fasten it up. And this is, again, all done with the string not tensioned. Okay, let's just make sure that that is about right. We've got a moment before it sets. Dum, dum. Okay, there's an E. There's an A. There's a slightly flat C sharp. There's an E. Okay, I think that is about as good as we're going to get. There we go. It's not perfect. It's very close, but not quite perfect. But as I say, as it's going into someone who will workshop this, it might as well be left. It's good enough to be getting on with. It needs, I personally think it needs the action to come down just a little tiny bit. It needs the neck to be straightened out just a tiny little bit. And it either needs the saddle to be cut back perhaps, or a slightly different saddle, or a different weight strings on it. But you know what? Guitars are so personal with how they feel and how you react to them and how they respond to you, that sometimes doing the minimum amount to get it there or thereabouts. It is an electric guitar. Guitars are inherently imperfect creatures. If you want the thing to play a synthesizer or sing or do something like that, guitars will never be perfect. This one, it's literally just on the edge, but I'm used to slightly heavy strings, and honestly, the range of the tuning on this, I'm kind of trying to go as light as I can on it, and it feels slightly odd. The reason that I play 10s is more to do with tuning stability under my fingers than anything else, because otherwise I get excited and I start bending picks and I start playing completely out of tune. When you're checking the tuning on your guitar, just to say this, is that it's all very well when you're in careful tuning mode to be going, yeah, is it, yeah. But what you tend to find is that if you sit there and you go, when you hit that string, you're stretching it, and that string is under more tension than it is at rest before the pick comes off it. And then the pick comes off it and the string's doing that, and it's playing sharp, sharp, sharp. And then as the excursion of the string narrows down, it becomes more and more in tune. So you kind of have to figure a little bit about your playing style. If you're someone who is doing a lot of stuff like that, where you're hitting very, very plucky, very attacky, you might actually want to tune your guitar so that it's very slightly flat, so that it doesn't go so sharp when you first hit it. If, on the other hand, you're doing a lot of sort of very, then you might want to tune it so that it is in tune as you play it, because as you're playing it less drastically, you're stretching it out of tune less as you hit it. Okay, I think that's about all we can do here. I'm going to box this up, put it back in its case, and give Lisa a call and tell her it's ready for her whenever she is. Okay, look after yourselves. I hope this stuff is useful. Maybe give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe. Any questions, give it a shout. Any comments, give it a shout. Be happy to have a go at answering them. Look after yourselves. I'm Andy Picker, and I'll see you next time out. Bye for now.